Hi, welcome to Canispaterchristmas. In this episode, I want to cover the basic stuff you need to know to get pixels added to your display. You need pixels, a pixel controller, a power supply, and a computer. Now, smart RGB pixels come in different shapes, sizes, and voltages, but they all pretty much act the same. You control the color and intensity of each individual bulb or node. Dumb RGB pixels, they look very similar, but you control the whole string as opposed to each individual bulb. Now, some different types of packages that pixels come in. First of all, there's bullets. They look like the normal traditional Christmas light string. There's flat bullets where the back of it is squared off. Some with sealed diffusers. These look like the traditional C9 Christmas lights. Some with detachable diffusers. And finally, there's flexible strip. Now, with the exception of strips, they're all molded in silicone to provide protection from the elements. Now, you probably don't want to put these in your fish pond, but they should be fine in the rain. Strips come with or without a silicone cover, but really aren't made to be out in the elements. A good use for strips is putting them inside something like PEX tubing. You can get that at the hardware store, which protects it from the rain. But it also diffuses the light in the tube, produces kind of a cool effect. So here's a wreath I made with strips and PEX tubing. Pixels generally run on 12 volts or 5 volts DC. I like big volts and I cannot lie. The controllers run on 12 volts, and I just like to keep it simple and run my pixels on 12 volts. The 5 volt pixels are a little bit more electronically efficient, but really it just comes down to personal preference. Now, the next thing you'll need is a pixel controller. Now, this takes the data from your computer and converts it into a signal that the pixels need. There's a few manufacturers that make controllers. Falcon is the Cadillac. It's got a lot of nice features and uses the latest technology. This is a SAN Devices controller. They're less expensive, but they're great controllers too. I'll put a link to both in the comments. Now, one thing about controllers, and it's really not just limited to controllers, but they're really specialty items. You can't just go to your local electronics store and pick one up. In fact, what you'll find is during the first half of the year, vendors will do group buys, meaning you pay for the stuff and you'll get it a few months later. People that make these things aren't huge corporations, so they can't afford to order a bunch of stuff without people ready to buy it. I know it may sound shifty, but that's just the way it is. The third item you need is a power supply. In fact, you may need several depending on how many pixels you're running in your display. You'll need at least one 12 volt power supply for the controller or controllers, and then a 12 or 5 volt DC supply for your pixels. Meanwell is the Cadillac of power supplies. This is a 12 volt power supply. I have other 12 volt power supplies that are not Meanwell that have worked fine for the last 2 years. I'll include links to both of those below. Fourth, you'll need a computer. The computer serves two purposes: to create and play your sequences. Sequences are basically just data that tell the lights when to turn on, off, and what color to use. Sequences are created with software. There's a few choices depending on the type of computer you have. I use a free program called Xlights. I'll put a link below. It runs on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Creating sequences can be time consuming, but if you're just trying to get started, you can create a sequence within a few minutes. Once you have a sequence, you connect your computer to the controller and you play the sequence, which controls your lights. Now, many people use a Raspberry Pi. It's a single board computer to play their sequences automatically. This avoids tying up your main computer while your display is running through the holidays. There's free software called Falcon Player. It turns the Pi into a player. I'll go into more detail in a future episode. You connect the computer to the controller with a standard Ethernet cable. Don't try to use Wi-Fi. There's too much data involved. It'll just kill your Wi-Fi. So those are the basics. A little more involved than going down to the hardware store and buying some lights and plugging them in, but it's not super complicated. You can do this. With pixels, you can create some really awesome displays. If you like forums, I'll put links below to some forums that I participate in. There's people all over the world that do this, and get some great advice from them. Questions and comments below. Subscribe if you want more videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.